This is Strange Truths and Tall Tales, the product of Newfoundland podcast. It's a place for people who are into Newfoundland stories and pop culture. We'll explore everything from pirate ghost tales to heroic rescues at sea, with a healthy dose of pop culture too. I'm Robert. I write at productofnewfoundland.ca. In this episode, I'm following in the footsteps of, well, the devil. I'm going to take a look at some of the marks he's supposedly left on the Newfoundland landscape. And that's going to require a stop in Fortune Harbour, where, according to the folktale, Mr. Kinchler and the devil's handprint can still be found on a rock. After that, we'll chat with Melanie O'Brien and Philip Goodridge of the Duds. They have some things to say about devils and demons too, in the form of 2 brand new Halloween-themed songs. We'll talk about those, as well as the new Tara Bruce musical Wild Rovers, and Philip's upcoming Ladies Who Lunch production 3 Tales of Terror. From there, we'll take a sharp left turn toward Hawke's Bay for the segment Monstrous Things, where in 1920 a fisherman battled for his life against a sea monster, or at least that's how the newspapers described it. That's a lot of ground to cover, so let's get to it. You're traveling through the fog, and just ahead is an island of forests, fairies, and fiends. Your next stop, Newfoundland, and these are its strange truths and tall tales. As I record this, there's a book on my shelf, almost staring at me. It's called, and I think this is a fantastic title, Complaints is Many and Various, but the Odd Devil Likes It. It's about Newfoundland life in the 19th century. I think it could be about Newfoundland life in the 21st century, too. I mean, I'm pretty happy here, but my complaints, many and varied. Odd devils aside, the straight-up cloven-hoofed horn version of the guy seems to have an affinity for this place, too. He seems to have visited often enough anyway. If you listen to the tall tales, the devil has left his mark all over Newfoundland. My father's family came from the resettled community of Flat Islands in Bonavista Bay. There's a legend there that the devil climbed up out of the ocean onto this rocky slope, and his hooves melted marks into the rock, leaving impressions that remain to this day. I've only ever visited Flat Islands once in my life, but my stop did include a trip to the Devil's Prince. While the marks are really evident, they are a bit subtle, at least compared to those found in Keels on the Bonavista Peninsula. In Keels, it's said that the devil danced so vigorously that his hooves left deep, impossible to overlook impressions in the rock. I mean, if you've been to Keels and seen the footprints, you can easily imagine where the legend came from. The oval marks in the rocks are maybe 10 centimeters deep and don't seem, they don't seem natural. I mean, they are, of course. The Discovery Geopark, of which the Keels footprints are a part, says that the cavities left were carbonate nodules called concretions eroded out of the bedrock. These concretions may have been the remnants of early organisms. Not devils, early organisms. It's pretty interesting stuff. Maybe not quite as riveting a fireside tale as a dancing devil. Speaking of that, I've asked people over the years if there is a fleshed out story of the devil in Keels. Like, why was he dancing there? No one's been able to tell me one. If you've heard, I'd love to know it. I'm dangerously close to writing my own at this point. You can check out the pictures of Keels and Flat Island footprints on the productofnewfoundland.ca webpage for this episode. Probably my favorite tale of the devil making a mark on this island comes from the tiny outport of Fortune Harbour in Notre Dame Bay. It concerns a man who bested the devil in a card game and so upset him he changed the landscape forever. Here's my retelling of that story. Here's Mr. Kinchler and the Devil. A long time ago, when today's tallest trees were only saplings, or maybe even before, a man named Kinchler came to live in Fortune Harbour. Joseph Kinchler didn't like to do any more work than he had to. The people of the harbour called him a layabout. His yard was untidy, his fence needed to be painted, and whenever people passed by his potato garden, they clucked their tongues and shook their heads at the state of weeds. Joseph heard their judgments, but it didn't bother him. He was content to do nothing but sip tea and shuffle his deck of cards. Kinchler carried his cards with him everywhere. It was a beautiful deck with gilt edges that shone in the lamplight. Nothing made Joseph happier than dealing them out and playing a hand. The game didn't even matter as long as cards were in play. It had become a habit. As soon as the sun slipped below the treetops and the supper dishes of Fortune Harbour were washed and dried, Joseph set out. Night after night, end unto end, he walked round the harbour and back again. He played cards with anyone he could find, Kitchen table to kitchen table around the town he went, his beautiful gilt-edged cards in his pocket. And he was good, too. In the beginning, people wanted to try their luck against him. The Gillespie, Hayes, and Shea boys bet if he could beat all three, they'd paint his fence. Kinchler, never one to back down from a challenge, agreed. But one by one, they fell, and by the next evening, his gilt cards had given him a fresh white fence. Some people quietly wondered if Kinchler was cheating. Nobody, they said, let alone a layabout like Joseph Kinchler, could win every hand. And before long, the people of Fortune Harbour didn't want to play cards with him anymore. Joseph grew despondent. He leaned back on his chair, shuffled his cards, and sighed. Just then, an idea occurred to him. There were other coves and other kitchen tables nearby. After all, night after night, end unto end, he'd walk Fortune Harbour and back again. How difficult could it be to walk to Weber's Bight? It was only 2.5 miles away. So, as the sun set in the October sky and the stars slowly revealed themselves above the evergreen trees, Joseph set out on the road to Weber's Bight. It was a narrow route, more a path than a road, winding along the rocky coast between scraggly spruce and over steep hills. Kinchler patted the deck of cards in his breast pocket. Stepping lively, he walked onward, up the last hill and around the bend, until the houses of Weber's Bight came into view. He approached a fence, opened the gate, and soon found himself invited in to the kitchen table, where he began dealing cards and winning hands. Word spread, and soon the kitchen was crowded with people wanting to challenge the luck of the Fortune Harbour marvel. But, game after game, stand after stand, the best of the Bight fell to his hand. "We've never seen the likes of you," said one old fellow. "You'd chance with your soul if the devil had a deck of cards in his hands." "Yes," laughed Kinchler, "and that I might. My soul if he wins, and," Kinchler winked, "he can weed my garden if he loses." It was almost midnight when the cards were put away. The moon was hanging low over the trees when the crowd spilled out into the night. Kinchler was no more than halfway home when, out of the darkness, he spotted a gentleman walking down the road toward him. Despite coming from Fortune Harbour, the man was a stranger, an unusual happenstance on such a remote road, all the more so in the middle of the night. Kinchler was curious. "Good evening," he said. "What brings you out this fine night?" "Same as you," said the stranger. "Out for a game of cards, are you then?" jested Kinchler as he held out his deck. "Well," chuckled the stranger as he produced a pack of his own, "I never turn one down." Kinchler surveyed the surroundings. In the bright moonlight, close beside them, he could see a large flat rock. "We can play here," Kinchler motioned. The stranger began dealing. Card after card seemed to favor the stranger. In the moonlight, Kinchler could make out a satisfied smile. Then it was Kinchler's turn to deal. Immediately the tide seemed to turn. The gilt-edged cards shone angrily in the stranger's dark eyes as Kinchler evened the score. Back and forth it went, the stranger dealing, pulling ahead, and Kinchler coming close behind, until the last hand, Kinchler's deal. Immediately the gilt cards favored Joseph, and before he knew it, the game was tied. Kinchler looked at the cards in his hand. A win was inevitable. The stranger glanced at his own hand, and anger streaked across his face. He knew he was about to lose. His nostrils flared, and a dark look settled in his eyes. Then, in the moonlight, it seemed impossible. Kinchler caught a glimpse of what had to be a tail. It belonged to the stranger, and it was twitching restlessly. Suddenly, Kinchler knew who he'd been playing. "Play your cards," commanded the devil. Joseph, as calm as he'd ever been, dropped his card, the gilt edge glinting against the rock. The game was over. He'd won. The devil roared a fearsome roar and raised his hand high in the air and slammed it down on the rock, scattering cards everywhere. "How?" roared the devil. "How could a loathsome layabout like you, Joseph Kinchler, beat me? From the mountain to the valley and the desert to the sea, neither king nor wise man has ever beat me." In a rage, the devil, who no longer resembled a benign stranger, turned from Joseph and shot straight into the sky, rising higher and higher until he was indistinguishable from the last of the night's fading stars. Joseph was stunned. Who could believe this? He began picking up his scattered cards. On the rock, just where the devil had struck, was a handprint, the devil's handprint. Kinchler had some proof. He had something to back up his story. And because what is set in stone stays in stone, the proof remains. To this day, you may find the devil's handprint upon Kinchler's rock on the trail from Fortune Harbour to Weber's Bight. And what's more, if you ask the right person in Fortune Harbour, they can show you a small piece of earth about the size of a potato garden where the weeds never grow. I love that story. I love it so much that it prompted me to visit Fortune Harbour. And it's this scenic little community at the end of a beautiful drive. Sadly, I didn't get to do the walk to Weber's Harbour or see Kinchler's Rock. But there is a rental property there in town called the Gillespie House, and according to their website, they can arrange guided hikes to the rock. And I think I'm going to take them up on that sometime in the future. In the meantime, I have other devils to think about, thanks to some new music from the Duds. The Duds are Melanie O'Brien and Philip Goodridge, two artists from St. John's who have been working together for the past 10 years. After touring Atlantic Canada in 2019, they released their debut album, These Words I Can't Forget. The record, which was produced by award-winning singer-songwriter Ian Foster, combined a folk-tinged roots sound with bright pop beats. The Duds were subsequently nominated for 2 Music NL awards, including Bell Alliant Pop Artist of the Year. Separately, Melanie and Philip have each carved out their own paths in the music industry. O'Brien's debut solo album, Shining in the Blue, earned her 3 Music NL Award nominations, and as a vocal coach, she holds the 2017 Music NL Award for Music Educator of the Year. Goodridge is a multifaceted artist and a seasoned professional theatrical performer working in Newfoundland for over 20 years. As the Duds, they create playful yet confessional music with plentiful hooks and big emotion. And they are about to release 2 brand new Halloween-themed tracks featuring devils and demons. And as if that wasn't keeping them busy enough, they are both part of the new Tara Bruce show, The Wild Rovers, at the newly renovated Majestic Theatre in St. John's. It was on that subject we started our conversation. Thank you for taking time to do this with me today. I know you are busy guys. Particularly, yesterday was a big day for you, right?
Huge, yeah.
You want to tell us a little bit about what yesterday was?
Sure. We actually started the day off at 10 a.m. There was an opening ceremony for the the newly renovated Majestic Theatre and the lounge and cafe space, Theatre Hill. So we got to hear some speeches, and it was just beautiful. And we had some lovely croissants and a chat, and there were some lovely people from the community there. So that was incredibly heartwarming. Our producer, Bob Hallett, had said a speech, and so did Walter Schroeder, our founder and lead Tara Bruce people. And it was absolutely amazing and really, really heartwarming to hear. And it was a wonderful way to start off the day of opening night. Do you know what I mean? So it made me even more excited. So that was great. And then I think I went to the mall because I needed a few things for opening night.
That was part of the big day. I went to the mall.
The big day at the mall.
Yeah.
And a lady in the mall was like, I saw your show. I saw your preview last night. It was great. I was like, thanks. So that was also really sweet. And then I think all of us tried to nap at home. I think we all tried to take some rest because the last 2 weeks with tech and opening is always just busy. Yeah. And then we got
Yesterday was not only the opening of the theater in the morning, but it was opening night of the Wild Rovers at night, followed by another reception. So it was a big party. No, but it was like, it's been really great to be working towards this for the last 2 months and have it finally come to fruition. It was awesome.
Yeah, so we got to do the show, and then after the show, we all put on our fancy clothes and had a little reception, and there was again a lot of beautiful, beautiful people there, and we had some nice photos and chats, and yeah, it was lovely.
I saw some of the photos on Instagram and other social media today. It looked like a great time, and that theater looks fantastic. I can't wait to get back to St. John's and check it out.
It's amazing.
It's great. There's going to be lots of stuff. I mean, after the Wild Rovers is done there, we finish up on October 1st. And before heading to Toronto, but there's the International Women's Film Festival is going to be in there, and a couple of other things over the fall. So we're already taking on bookings, which is really exciting to see.
I sort of wanted to start with that a little bit of a chat about the Wild Rovers. I don't know if you want to fill us in a little bit more about what that is.
The Wild Rovers basically. The idea behind it was they wanted to take music that was performed by the Irish Rovers and turn it into sort of a bit of a jukebox musical. And what the result was through Steve Cochran, our writer, and Kelly Evans and Josh Ward, who are musical arrangers, and Jason Byrne, our director, is this like wild fairy tale that I always say to people that it's like a cross between Princess Bride and the Muppets, that kind of humor. Yeah, tell them a bit more about that, Melanie. That's
Oh,
your
I love
lead.
that. I love that. It's the silliest thing I've ever been a part of, and basically we've all just been laughing together for months, wondering like how far we can go with the comedy of it all, and we really haven't reached that limit yet. And our director Jason is amazing. Everyone's been amazing, and he's really given us a lot of freedom to play creatively. And I feel more free on stage than I think I ever have. So it's been a real gift. And just the group of people that are working on this together is really something special.
It when I first heard about it, I thought this sounds fantastic. And now that I know it's Princess Bride meets the Muppets, that's just outrageous. I got to check this out. Musical. I want to start with musicals, really, because musicals are an important part of the Duds, right? Don't we kind of owe the Duds to the Rocky Horror Show?
We actually met before that, but that is when did the Duds start? Were we already the Duds by Rocky Horror? I don't think we were.
So I was born a dud, and
I was also born a Dud. If we're getting specific.
no, really, it's funny because my husband and Phil worked together when they were teenagers. And Phil actually worked with my sister. He met both of my sisters at some point, I think. My older sister. So I would just run into him in our early 20s, I think, with my husband. I just say hi because I knew who he was, and I always thought he was really cool. And I was like, oh, he's such a good actor. This guy's so cool. Everyone knows him. They love him. So I just would say hi. And then we ended up in a rock band together, and we ended up doing Rocky Horror together, which was really great. And that was like a long time ago. We don't really know anymore.
When people ask us how or when we met, we're like, I don't know. I actually don't know because it just sort of. Well, I made the same assumption. I was like, oh, hi, Melanie. Like we already knew each other, and it just sort of like so. There's no that we can't pinpoint the time, but I do believe you're correct. It was after Kicking the Help was formed in and around Rocky Horror, and then I think after that we disbanded amicably. It was a great group, but people were going off in different directions, and then we were like, well, I guess we should keep going. And we did.
Yeah, I was like, I'm tired of playing solo shows. I was doing that a lot, like 3 hour shows, 4 or 5 nights a week. And I was so excited about the band. And then I was like, oh, well, Phil and I can play together. So yeah.
I'm just here sitting thinking, Kicking the Help. You guys were in Kicking the Help. I didn't realize you guys were in Kicking the Help. I tried to do my homework, but I remembered.
Oh, that I mean, that was it was a short period of time. We went in hard and fast with that because we right away Adam Carter, who sort of like put it all together, he was like, we're not, we're not fussing around. We're going to record an album immediately. We have songs. We're going to do an EP, and our first gig is going to be our album release. And we're like, okay, it feels backward, but also amazing. And it was only about maybe 2 years that we were able to get on the go, and then a few of the people, like you say, moved away, and it just wasn't feasible to carry it on. But so it's all right that you would have missed it because it was a blip. It was a happy, lovely blip, but it was very short.
I'm like 90% certain I have a Kicking the Help album just upstairs here, but I will check that
have
out.
I love it.
Like 90% certain I do.
That's amazing.
When this interview was done, I went to my CD collection, and sure enough, there was an album by Kicking the Help, Vicious Habits. No idea why I didn't clue into the fact that Melanie and Philip were a part of this band. All right, so yeah, music, Rocky Horror, maybe not where you met, but obviously horror, Halloweeny, scary stuff is something that's in the Dud DNA, really. I follow you both independently on Instagram, and I know you've both had lots of sort of spooky projects in the past, and now you're really doubling down and giving us something very Halloween oriented. What's that?
It was actually Melanie's idea. Well, Halloween is my favorite time of year, and as you know, I watch a horror movie, like 1 to 2 horror movies almost every day. It's my genre. It's what I love. Melanie also likes horror, but like I don't think quite to the same degree. Like I'm obsessed.
No, because I'll get nightmares. I have to cut myself off, but Phil doesn't.
I sleep like a baby. But and I wanted this too, but Melanie actually said out loud last time we were applying for a grant, she was like, no one does Halloween songs. We should do that. Like, that's a niche market. And I was like, Kim Petras releases Halloween songs, but not a lot of other people do. And I immediately like latched onto the idea. So it was really her doing that brought this all about.
I forgot it was my idea. Thank you. But I was listening to, well, Phil loves horror and he always tells me good horror to watch and he inspires me in that way. So it's great. And I'm a huge Halloween fan, always have been. So I was listening to a lot of, I was doing some Kate Bush. I was singing that with the NSO. So I was listening to a lot of her. And then I became really obsessed with Florence and the Machine's Dance Fever album. And then I went back to some old Tori Amos too. Like I got, and I wrote a song that I was so excited about. And then I was like, Phil, let's do a Halloween song. He's like, I can write a Halloween song. I was like, you could probably write albums of Halloween songs. So we decided to lean into it. I think it's not done enough because I know every year I carve a pumpkin and I try and get really into the season and I want a Halloween playlist. So I often actually listen to Phil's radio plays with Ladies Who Lunch, which you can buy and download, and they're amazing. So it's very spooky, really nice atmosphere to listen to if you're doing Halloween stuff or just anytime. A fabulous bunch. And then for music, for more songs, like I find people are really reaching to find Halloween songs. Like there's a lyric that says like monster once or like the word night and it's on a Halloween playlist. So I just think, and it's great. All those are great. I think it's okay to reach for it, but I just thought there should be more. So
that actually came up in our dressing room last night, in the men's dressing room at the Majestic, because we play a bit of music in there. We're getting ready, and I think it was Sean Panting who was like, "Man, there's no Halloween songs out there," and I was like, "Well, Sean,
well,
first of all, you'll get a couple of new ones on October 1st," and then I was like, "You got Kim Petras, like I said, the Nightmare Before Christmas soundtrack. It was Monster Mash," and I started listing off like all the Halloween appropriate tunes that there are. But you're right, like any song that has the word ghost in it, you're like, oh, Halloween playlist. So
and you guys know
nice
something about songs that have the word ghost in them.
like our whole first EP, at least half, if not 80% of the songs all have the word ghost in there, like independently of one another. Like
well, yeah.
it just happens. Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I think the sixth song we put on the album, I was like, oh my God, I said ghost again, guys. So our producer, like we have a joke, it really not intentionally that we're like, a few more ghosts should do it. Like we'll just put a few more ghost lyrics in there. So it's been underlying the whole time. And I think our first single from the EP that Phil wrote has that Halloween vibe as well. And a little bit of Christmas.
Which ironically, yeah, is sort of a Christmas song because the idea was sort of based on the idea of being visited by the spirits to like repent on your horrible life, which was obviously born out of the Christmas Carol story. But it works much like The Nightmare Before Christmas. Send Me a Ghost works as a Halloween song or a Christmas song. So
I actually thought and started to build a dud playlist that I thought could be a Halloween playlist of dud songs. And Send Me a Ghost obviously is on there. I even think, and now you've mentioned Christmas and your Dudvent calendar and it comes to mind, I even think Solstice, which is obviously about December, kind of has a Halloweeny vibe. It could work there too.
Yeah, it's like dark, spooky nights with a bonfire and like, dancing around in celebration. It's very Halloweeny for me.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
We love that about those songs. And Phil wrote both of those. They're so versatile. Like if we want to just, promote Send Me a Ghost in February, we can,
Any time of year.
It is. It's a great song that's applicable year round. And I think actually there is a dud song for all seasons. And you're really helping us out this Halloween release for sure. I've seen the album art, so the two new songs, and kind of creepy. You were in a cemetery, I think, for the photo.
Yeah, we did a few. We went out into the woods. We went to the cemetery. We took there's lots of footage. It was a lot of fun actually with Jerry Stamp, who did all the photos and the design. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we had a thread going and I was like, we were talking about where to shoot. And I was like, I will go to a graveyard dressed like that. Do you guys have a boundary there? Can we do that? And it's actually the shots that most of the shots we used are from the graveyard hang on a Saturday afternoon where we were dressed like a witch and a demon and nobody said anything.
It's that kind of place, Newfoundland. We're embracing of all sorts of weirdness. Uh, um, thematically, what should we be expecting from the songs? Like, what are you tackling in these songs?
Well, what I thought was really fun. It's funny that you should mention it. Like, we both work a lot in musical theater anyway, and our songs tend to have a bit more drama to them than most pop songs. That's just the way that we write. Um, but we try to scale it, like, to be somewhat radio friendly or whatever. But then when Melanie suggested Halloween songs, it was like, okay, all bets are off. Similarly with the Christmas tunes, it was like, okay, we can be a little extra here. And so for my song, I immediately came up with this, like, literally dancing with the devil. Like, that's the whole premise of that song. So I was, again, much like Melanie, I was very inspired by Florence and the Machine, Kate Bush, and Tori Amos is like, she's my jam since high school. Like, she's my main influence. So just all these sweeping, like, scary and the heavy drums, like, it was really great to have that permission to really tell a story, and in a really big way.
Yeah,
Cool.
definitely. Mine's just like falling in love with a demon or something that's bad for you. Hopefully that's relatable. And we can really take that to a dark side, and I just think playing with it was so much fun. It was so much fun to lean into that because over the years, like, we have heard from many people, like, we're too theatrical or not theatrical enough. Sometimes we're doing theater, like, you never know what you're going to get. So we just think the best thing to do with that is just stay true to what we feel good about, who we are, our influences, and we really feel proud, I think, of our theater influence. And so giving ourselves permission to lean into that, having a theme, was just really exciting creatively.
I think for me, as a listener and fan of you guys, that I guess I do hear the musical theater influence in there. But for me, I frame it as big emotion. I expect big emotion from a Duds song, and
Yeah.
that's never a bad thing.
Oh, thank you. We love that.
Yeah.
Talking about big emotion, you also, I mean, I think you're a band that likes to have fun. I mean, I've seen your cover videos on YouTube, and everybody should go check those out. They are a lot of fun. But alongside the fun, you hit on some serious stuff too. I'm thinking about songs like "The Party." "The Party" is a 2021 holiday release from the Duds. It sort of presents the picture of somebody who's having a hard time taking part in holiday festivities.
Yeah, I'm really proud of that one, and I'm really, because there's a lot of Christmas songs out there, and they're all about, yay, it's fun, let's have a party, let's celebrate this and that. But some people really struggle in the holidays. I was like, there's no song about that, and there really should be. And the idea that people are like, oh, put a smile on your face, it's Christmas. It's like, you don't know what someone is dealing with during the holidays. You don't know their story. So, like, friggin' live and let live. I remember Jordan Vincer, actually, our assistant stage manager on Wild Rovers, he was putting together, it was sort of in response to COVID, a seasonal Christmas sort of online thing with his company, Riveting Productions. And he asked me if I would do a song and or a video. And immediately that idea came to mind, so I wrote it for that. And then again, Melanie had the idea for a holiday EP, and I was like, I really want to put that one on there because the idea is like, even with like dealing with the heaviness and the darkness that you feel, there's always someone. Not all, there isn't always someone, but like hopefully people will reach out. Like it does have a positive sort of spin in the end about, like, regardless of what you're going through during the holidays, like, reach out, or if you know someone who needs to be reached out to, that you should do that because it can be a hard time.
It's just about being honest, and we're silly people who are really content to laugh at ourselves, and that has been really helpful artistically too. For me personally, not learning to take yourself so seriously and just laugh at it, because what we do again is we get to play, we get to be so creative, and it's such a joy. So leaning into the joy about that, but also making a point when you feel creatively inspired to make a point, and Phil is so good in that way that and it just comes through, I think, is really honest and sincere, because it wasn't made for the sake of making a point. It's just we see something, recognize it, not afraid to put it out there, and reflect on it.
It's funny because we write our songs independently, and then come together. We list each other as writers these days on the song because like my songs, the arrangements don't exist until like Melanie and I and our producer Ian Foster get into a room and create it and come up with the harmonies and stuff. So like we do write independently, but we both have that in common, probably from our theater background, is that like, you know, I love songs that are just like, I love you, let's go dance. Like, listen, Kylie Minogue's new album is lit. I love it. But I just, anytime, even when I sit down to try and write one of those songs, which are super fun, I always end like with like this. When I started with that, I sort of had the like a dance beat in mind, and I was like, oh yeah, and then it ended up being like this like an actually emotional story about like connecting when you're trying to disconnect, and I was like, no matter what we do, we can't. We always end up having, like you say, like a character slice or like a storyline or something in there, which is really fun.
I just don't think it's up to us. Do you know what I mean? Like you sometimes I sit down. Yeah, you want to write something lighter, you want to write something dramatic and heavy, and you end up with the opposite. You like I've had days where I was like exhausted, maybe slightly hungover, and I'm like, I'm just gonna play my little ukulele for like 20 minutes to feel happy. 3 hours later, I'm crying, and I hear my husband hearing me, and he cries because I wrote this heartbreaking song about this heartbreaking thing I didn't mean to write. You never know. So it's really interesting. You never know what's gonna happen. You just have to go with it, I think.
I mentioned a minute ago that you've done lots of cover videos on YouTube, a lot of them with a sort of a humorous bent to them. I'm thinking Private Dancer at the moment.
One of my favorites.
How do you choose what you're going to cover?
First, it's funny if you go back to the Foo Fighters one that we did, which is that's not a funny one. That was just us in Melanie's backyard, which was I had a lovely time doing that song. J-Lac at K-Rock. Well, that's a funny sentence to say, isn't it? J-Lac at K-Rock was doing a Foo Fighters tribute, and he reached out to us to do a song, and that was great. And then he was doing a U2 tribute, and I really love Love Is Blindness. That's one of my favorite of their songs. It's a bit of a deep cut, but I love it. And we did that one. And then I think the Heart one, there was a tribute to Heart. And it's funny, I was talking to Lynn Panting about this, because when we do photo shoots or videos or stuff, and I just have to be myself in like nice clothes, I get super awkward. I'm like, how do I pose? Melanie is amazing at it. She comes by it honestly. She'll do poses and flip her hair. No, it's gorgeous. And it's like, it's all from like a real honest place. Me, I'm like, should I stand like this? And like awkwardly. But when we're taking the piss, like when it's funny, I'll do whatever, balls to the wall. So when we did the video for All I Want to Do Is Make Love to You, I was like, okay, I have a plan, and this would be, and so that sort of like that ended up being how we decided to make our videos after that. It was like, all right, we'll do a serious cover, like we'll do a song that we really like, but if we do a video, we've got to do something like very
Oh, Phil directed it. Like Phil directed me that whole time. I was like, what do I do now? Like, where do I go? He's like, sit here, do this. And I was the awkward one, not necessarily being myself. And he'd be like, no, it's okay. We're going to do this. And Private Dancer too. And I just was like, what are we doing? Is this, and I just learned to trust him because it always turns out so fun and funny. So if Phil's like, we're going to do this video on the edge of a cliff, I'd be like, okay, what time? So like, whatever. It always works out to be so much fun. So that's all him.
We were watching some of your videos the other night, and my husband said I had to ask you, Mel, when we were going to get another one because he was super impressed with your hairography.
I love him. I work really hard at that.
It's evident in all of the videos. The hair is always on point from Melanie O'Brien.
You just use props where you can get them.
Yeah.
That's very sweet. Thank you.
Well, so we've got new Halloween music coming out. You're touring to Toronto very shortly. So this Halloween stuff is all in the middle of a very busy time for you, dud-wise and on a personal artistic level as well. Anything else on the horizon we can look forward to?
It keeps working out that we keep releasing music at the same time. We're doing like a musical with Ruth, and it's never been that way.
Yeah, originally scheduled. I think we were supposed to be wrapped up. Things shift as they often do in the industry, but we were going to release the Halloween song. I think we were meant to be like off for a bit, but then when they shifted, now we're going to be in Toronto. But it's also great. Like we're booked and blessed, as they say, because it's nice to be able to release music. We'd love to be able to play more live gigs, but just with our work with Tara Bruce, it doesn't always pan out. And we have other projects. Like as soon as we're done with Wild Rovers, I have another Ladies Who Lunch show. We're moving it to November this year because I'll be gone. So we're doing our horror radio plays, and when that's done, we'll be re-promoting our Christmas music, because that's the other great thing about seasonal songs is you can always bring them back around.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we're
They'll be on
really
my playlist this year for sure.
Yay!
I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the Ladies Who Lunch. Ladies Who Lunch, of which Philip is a member, is a theater group that brings you back to the golden age of radio by performing original audio dramas live on the stage. Their Three Tales of Terror show has become a bit of an annual event in St. John's.
This is our 7th year in a row. And I have not written all 3 this year. I usually write all 3 radio plays, but this year Mark White has written one and Lynn Panting has written one, and I have one in there too. And we have a theme this year of cursed objects. So it's Three Tales of Terror 7, The Curiosity Shop. So they're independent stories, but all woven together through the thread of like a mysterious stranger, shopping. Very much Friday the 13th, the series. Do you remember that? Anybody else?
Absolutely.
Canadian amazing television series, Friday the 13th. Gordon Pinsent was on an episode.
I don't remember
With
that.
with
I
a
haven't seen it
cursed camera.
I haven't seen Friday the 13th, the series, since like the early 90s, I guess. I don't think I've ever seen it in reruns anywhere.
It is on Paramount Plus right now.
Oh.
Every episode. I love that idea of the haunted curiosity shop and strange and cursed objects. So when we were coming up with the plays this year, and Lynn and Mark wanted to try their hand, we were like, all right, we'll pick 3 things and we'll write our stories around that. So it's been a really cool, and we're in the Elks Lodge this year in St. John's. So it's a new location for us, but it's a great venue, and we're really excited to do that as well.
Yeah, I highly recommend. I fangirl out and I go every year, and it's always fantastic. It's just unique. It's kind of a different thing to do. So I just love it. And also for Duds, like we have a lot of ideas. We have luckily for us, we have more catalog than we have been able to produce yet. So there's ideas of doing, I don't know, I feel like, stop me if I shouldn't release, because we don't know what's going to actually happen, but maybe more Christmas songs down the road. Maybe more cover, like a set of covers that we could put together. But yeah, we have a lot of ideas, I think, in it, and we just take it kind of by season and by what we're writing, what's inspiring us. And we're just really fortunate that we've been able to put out as much music as we have. So check out dudsforlife.com and check out us on Spotify and add these new spooky tunes to your playlists. We're so thrilled to have them out. I think it's something that really speaks to us both.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate you taking the time in what is obviously a very busy season for you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and we're off today until the show tonight, so we have this is our nice gentle pick. You can tell I'm in my loungewear. For those of you listening at home, we are very comfortable right now.
For the record, their relaxation wear was way more stylish than mine. Melanie had these great slippers, and Philip was giving me sock envy. He had these cool Halloween socks with bats, I think? I don't know. I'll drop links for the Duds, Tara Bruce, and Ladies Who Lunch in the blog description box so you can go check them all out. Now it's time for something different, something monstrous. I'm capping off each episode this season with a segment I'm calling Monstrous Things, where I recount a tale of a sea monster or sea serpent reported in the mainstream media. Sometimes the creatures reported are outright mysteries. Other times, maybe, what was seen was sort of an exaggeration of a known animal. I think this one might be the latter sort. You can decide. This sighting was reported in both the St. John's Daily Star and the Western Star in September of 1920, just over 103 years ago. The headline read, "Battles for his life with big sea monster. West Coast fisherman encounters strange sea monster which tried to drag man from boat." According to the reports, Ted Perry of Parsons Pond, or Kid Perry in the Western Star report, was fishing in his dory when he was attacked by a strange-looking animal. The creature reared some 6 or 8 feet up out of the water and lurched toward the dory. It was described as having a sharp nose, eyes like saucers, and rows of teeth. As quickly as it had appeared, the animal slipped beneath the surface again, leaving Perry terrified. He gazed out on the water, where he had last seen the animal, but there was nothing. Then behind him, on the other side of the dory, the animal surfaced again and propelled itself toward him. It thrust its head over the gunwale and caught Perry by the pant leg. It started to pull him toward the water. Its sharp teeth tore at the fabric. Thankfully, the material ripped and the creature lost hold of Perry. The frightened fisherman lay in the bottom of his boat as the animal regrouped and continued its attack. A fisherman in a motorboat nearby saw what was happening. He came to offer assistance. The animal didn't seem to like the sound of the engine. It disappeared below the surface, and the men never saw it again. What did the monster look like? Well, beyond the saucer eyes, pointed nose, and rows of teeth, the Western Star notes that some stories in Hawke's Bay describe the monster as 80 feet long, with a huge shovel-like head sitting atop a snake-like neck. But they didn't buy that. The truth, the paper decides, is that a savage attack was made by what was probably a man-eating shark. Whatever it was, known or not, it must have been terrifying. What do you think? Shark or sea serpent? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget, I want your story of the devil in Keels, or Flat Islands, or any other place he's supposed to have been. If you have a picture of Kinchler's Rock, I'd love to see that too. And once again, thanks to the Duds for chatting. Their new Halloween music is available on October 1st, and the rest of their catalog is out there right now, and so is Melanie O'Brien's Shining in the Blue and recordings of Philip's Ladies Who Lunch radio dramas. Check them out. Thanks for listening, and tune in next time for more strange truths and tall tales from a foggy island. Have a great day. Oh, and if you find yourself on a lonely moonlit path, maybe don't play cards with strangers.